A year ago, I released a video titled The Fall of Yandere Dev, and that cataloged over 3 hours the grooming allegations regarding Yandere Dev, a disgraced game developer. The video would consume roughly 5 months of my life as I unraveled this ludicrous conspiracy of internet morons. For the uninitiated, the pitch starts like this. Yandere Dev, aka Alex Mahan, was starting a romantic relationship with someone who was 16 going on 17, Alex being 35 to 36 over the course of the story. This was horrific to find out, but it got even worse than that as everybody in this story was fumbling something. Everybody had their hand in the cookie jar. It was a fumble of epic proportions I have not ever seen since. One of the people that was involved with this was a person by the name of CameronF305, who many of you may have seen recently in a recent explosive video aping the content cop that he showed me right before it came out. So what happened in this ridiculous story? Why does it matter? And what happened since then, since some new stuff has happened? Let's save everyone that 3-hour video that I posted and give you the TLDW and find out where these people are now. Join me as we uncover the aftermath of Yandere Dev.
It's crazy,
So
you know what?
she told you that? But, Allie, you lied to me.
Understand that, and I do apologize for that.
Saw a little bit more than I should have seen. Okay, timidly, pensively, and only like one time. There were 2 times I saw. There was only one time I implied I wanted to see it.
The man of the hour is Dev, aka Alex. Dev, as I came to understand over the course of this ridiculous story, is a pathetic person. He's the archetypal incel complete with poor opinions on sex and outburst of outrageous anger. For the uninitiated to his lore, it starts like this over 10 years ago. You see, a conversation bubbled up on 4chan's V, where a then much younger Yandere Dev discussed the idea of a social stealth game with others online. That conversation would bubble into a game that would never release. It would bubble into Yandere Simulator. You see, as Dev began his development, release dates were pushed back, almost in perpetuity. People began noticing how this guy would react to criticism and basically just freak out. The cracks were small at first, but over time this would boil over into drama. Dev tried to stop the bleeding with an unhinged blog post cataloging and addressing his various controversies. Now, what are these controversies and how long is the list? Well, it's pretty damn long, so let's include some famous ones that are actually on his debunk page, which is no longer up. Threatening suicide or trying to push others to suicide, a corporate fumbling from publisher TinyBuild that cost Dev literally a blank check, his teenage web history where he wrote vivid murder fantasies about his parents, and a Fallout fanfiction featuring rape, sex licenses, which the conversation's as bad as you think it is, weird dismissals of pedophilia. He's been accused of spending Patreon money on a life-size Samus Aran sex doll. Here's a post from that website. The Yandere Simulator game is an unoptimized, unfinished, buggy, and poorly programmed mess, and when questioned on it, he flips out. He's been accused of doing asset flips for Yandere Sim, or just stealing assets from online. The game has been called a self-insert fetish project. That one's probably the most true one on here if you've ever played the game. There is a toothbrush that kills the game's performance and crashes it. That video has a lot of views about a damn toothbrush in a video game that's not out. The history of Yandere Simulator is cataloged online by numerous people, including Yandere Simulator's own website, which features embellished retellings from Dev's perspective, which are ultimately him trying to just save his own ass. But believe it or not, none of these things were the killing blow, actually. It actually took a lot, and, you know, the guy's still trucking today. Now, the short version of the killing blow was that Yandere Dev came into contact with a girl named Jelly, who you might hear referred to as a bunch of other names, none of which are actually her name. Now, Jelly and Dev began talking online, and Jelly was a minor at the time, but Dev entertained talking to her anyway. His reasoning basically boils down to she's mature for her age, and she was 16 to 17 at the time of these events, and he was 35 going on 36. So you can imagine that this is not an appropriate relationship to have. Now, between myself and various other people involved in the story, there are quite literally hours of calls between him and Jelly. You can find all these online. The files were released by another YouTuber in the story named Allie. So how did this whole pedophile thing start, right? For those of you unfamiliar with this drama, allow me to give you some clips of this cognito hazard. And of course, if you're watching this and you're a streamer or something, you've been warned.
You're cute. You put your hands on your hips.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's like my seriousness stance. Like I mean,
Oh, you're
you know?
adorable. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What are you doing with your finger there?
I'm thinking. These are. Am I thinking?
You're so cute.
What? No, because like when you think and then your brain is working and your
You're
fingers.
so fucking cute.
What?
Pat, pat. Pat, pat, pat.
Now, I mentioned the large-scale leaker is Allie, and I'll explain who she is in a moment. But Allie was holding on to all of this and assuming that Jelly was the world's most innocent girl the entire time. And Jelly was most certainly not. She's a victim, but she also is one of the most deeply disturbed people in this entire story. Jelly has a long history of posting pictures of her body on 4chan as a minor. She participated in Discord servers that provided rules on how to blackmail pedophiles for money, food, and games. She even tried to do that with Yandere dev. Hell, the reality is, she probably did. She probably made off like gangbusters. Jelly is extremely antisocial in her behavior. She has had practice doing this, and Dev was not her first mark. Now, I should mention, Dev is the adult here, and he should be held accountable for his actions. Which is why, despite the deliberate, calculated, and malicious behavior of Jelly, the buck stops with Dev. Full stop. Jumping ahead a moment though, this whole thing I had never had access to was this footage that I'm going to show you next, of Dev admitting the heinous activity that had just been alluded to this entire time. And so, again, cognito hazard unless you want to think about the cum chalice guy jerking off.
Yeah, these conversations got out of control and I should have stopped them and I didn't. And, well, I wasn't going to mention that in the video. Yeah, okay, I saw a little bit more than I should have seen. Okay, timidly, pensively, and only like one time. There were 2 times I saw. There was only one time I implied I wanted to see it. When she said the conversation got sexual, what did that mean? Well, she said to me, "Hey, I'm really horny. Do you mind if I masturbate?" And I said, okay. And then she just started. She was just moaning into the microphone, and then she finished like a minute later. She said it was my voice that did it for her. And another time, you know how like when you're having a conversation, it's just so easy to just give a reply without thinking, hey, wait a minute, this it's kind of inappropriate to say that to someone who's young. I didn't show her. She just said, "How big is your dick?" And I said, 8 inches. I never saved a single thing.
So there it is. There's the admission from Dev that many people just were wishing to have for such a long time. In a recent call I had with a former confidant and collaborator of Dev's, CameronF305, he revealed to me that these anonymous leaks were his. He provided them during a conversation he had with Reddit mods over a period of few days. Cameron is going to come back into this story in a little bit as well, but let's get through the rest of the characters in this story. So how'd all this stuff start? Well, it all starts with a simple expose video by a YouTuber called AllieMCC. She now goes by Allie's son, and she published a video on Yandere dev. Basically, over the course of 40 minutes, she relayed the story of Jelly, a minor, and things were messy and not really what Allie was putting out there. The story was a lot more complicated than what Allie wanted it to be. Allie was gathering these recordings of Dev by collaborating with the minor victim Jelly. As in, calls would happen and occur, and Jelly would live react to Allie in a group chat, and then would share the calls with Allie, and Allie would give notes and encourage further prodding for the good of victims everywhere. Yes, seriously. Allie held the insane contradictory position of Jelly, the minor, is a victim, but also is a minor who can't consent and has it in her power to stop Dev anyway, despite the fact that she can't consent and shouldn't be here anyway. So literally, this minor is the only person that can stop Yandere Dev? Okay, so I obviously don't know what specifically happened with the feds, but at the time I found out about all of this, myself and my team got in contact with somebody at the FBI, at a local FBI office to where Jelly is located. There were multiple personal correspondence over the time period of this happening, an agent working on the case. Things dried up. You know, we had it all. We had a personal direct line to them, email to share information. It was serious. But I think, in my personal opinion, that this victims crusade that Allie was doing over this period of time is exactly why this case went nowhere. They were having a minor basically try to sting Operation a pedophile. The entire time this was going on, by the way, as I would grill Allie refused to listen to me or cooperate at every turn. I would repeatedly tell her that Jelly is more than she lets on, but this lady wouldn't listen to me and would continue to do whatever the hell she felt like, ultimately making the situation worse for everybody.
All right, I'm gonna drop the pretense here, right?
Mhm.
Here's how it looks to me, right? To me, it kind of looks like you might have had an active hand in trying to entrap Yandere Dev using a real minor, right? I have a call that allegedly includes you, Krexa, and Jane, where Krexa is encouraging Jane to record these calls and trying to get entrapping material on him.
Mhm.
Any comment?
Well, I have been in deeper contact with Krexa. She has been wanting me to basically she has some things she wants to get out about Cameron that I am still trying to look into and unsure if I'm going to pursue. That's not something that, I really want to share with people because she also feels afraid, and again, I don't know like exactly how that's going to go or if I'm going to pursue it. So I'm not exactly planning to, you know, talk to people about that. Um Jane was interested in hearing Krexa's side of her story from when she was roommates with Cameron because Jane is still in contact with Cameron and supposedly he's been doing some very not good things with Jane. And so I facilitated a call between Krexa and Jane. Krexa did, on her own, encourage Jane to record things. That's not something I was really supportive of. I was in the call just to listen, but not participating. I had my mic muted the entire time.
Okay, she also had a collaborator that isn't hugely important to this story. Allie was working with a person by the name of Decepticami who produced a series of TikToks on Yandere Dev and participated in these group chats. Kami basically didn't like that I called him unimportant. And this is the end of talking about Decepticami. He's still unimportant. You see, one of the things that happened over this drama is that every glup shitto I came across wanted a chance to whet their sword. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to include every single stupid tangent. The Reddit mods of r/Osana played a minimal role, but as I'll explain in all my talks with the people they had, I also had talks with all those parties involved. Everybody involved in the story wanted to placate to a specific group, so as a result, the mods, myself, or anybody else looking into this basically got a different story depending on how good of a detective the people lying felt the person was. I'm just gonna be upfront, I'm presenting what I found. That's it. So if you like content like this, check me out on Patreon, get exclusive access to the podcast I work on with the boys. Or buy my coffee at manapotioncoffee.com and get USDA organic fair trade coffee. We got tea as well, and I'm sure you'd like it because the people that I actually cover sometimes still say that my coffee is good, even when I'm grilling them.
I've had your coffee, by the way. Good shit.
I did not know that. Okay.
You did. And by the way, I actually was very impressed by. I'm like one of those guys that's in like to YouTuber products. Like I've tried the fucking quartering coffee. That shit was that shit was like Chinese fucking bullshit. Okay, that like I actually was very impressed. I thought you were going to. I thought it was some drop shipping scheme. I'm not even gonna lie, and I wasn't gonna blame you for it because, like, hey man, I mean, we all gotta like hustle. But like, fuck, I was impressed. That's good shit, man.
I mean, I didn't know I wanted an endorsement from Cameron, but you know, I'm glad I got it. Am I right? So this video is primarily about Cameron. So let's uncover and go over how this all unravels. In 2023, Cameron tweeted vaguely about Dev's allegations. As I said, a year ago, the tweets are gone, but I very quickly learned that this was a story that I need to catalog everything in, so that would change very quickly. During our initial talks, Cameron basically brushed it off as false allegations. Dev had been on the receiving end of harassment the entirety of his lolcow status, and Cameron would become increasingly worried about this over time. But he was also never being fully honest with me because, well, he worked with Dev. Cameron did the music for Yandere Simulator, but Cameron's a lot more than that. Cameron was Yandere Dev's liaison to the outside internet, a young man who would, quote, look at things critically. He initially got me in contact with Dev a long time ago and vouched for me on our initial talks many years ago. Cameron would also be overly charitable and forgiving to Dev at every single situation in turn. Anyone who's followed this drama for a long time can tell you that Cameron was seen as the guy who would get in the trenches with people online and get his hands dirty for Dev. He would fight his battles for him. Make no qualms about it, the guy did a lot more than work for Yandere Dev. He was his closest friend and confidant. He's the reason I saw Yandere Dev's apology early, and Cameron was an active participant from day one in all of these grooming allegations. For example, in my initial calls with the involved parties, I would bring up Ali's evidence, and Cam would be present in these calls where I'm talking with Yandere Dev, Cameron, and myself. Cameron would occasionally chime in with his 2 cents, and occasionally he would even be critical, and I'll give him that. Other times he'd try and downplay what we were reading. And what I was reading out and showing to them is absolutely outrageous, so let me read some Snapchats between Dev and this minor he was grooming. Yandere Dev. I think about that sometimes. 17 is 94.4% of 18, so therefore being attracted to a 17-year-old girl is 94.4% okay. Later in the chat, Yandere Dev says, quote, so really the only thing for me to get out of this are lewd pictures and videos to fap to, end quote. To which the minor, Jelly, responds, quote, which I'll provide you if you promise to keep it secret. Yandere Dev responds, oh, heart emoticon. I would keep it a secret, heart emoticon.
I will say, the words lewd pictures does not specifically imply, because one thing I will say is like hentai is a thing. I'm not trying to like go like crazy here, but it's like that's like not uncommon and like I guess Discord communities to like share like NSFW artwork.
Yeah, but you're still not supposed to share it with a minor. That you can get.
I wouldn't really want to do that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that's what he was doing. I'm saying that's what she was. She could have been offering, and that's kind of how it comes off. Because let's be real, I don't think you're out there sending like. I don't think you're commonly out there on the market sending and receiving and trading nude pictures with people there. I think you're working on a video game. So I guess I'm trying to understand your interpretation of that message.
And that isn't even a clip, Chimp. I'll provide the calls for you all to go through yourself if you don't want to sit here and listen to me talk. All right? The guy was the go-between for Yandere Dev, pitching me on watching the response from Dev on stream later on in one of our talks.
I know that even if he does an interview that makes him look bad, it'll still help his image at this rate. Because if you think about it, like, he just needs transparency. I don't, and I think that would be great for your channel as well. It'd be a great look for you because, I mean, just the integrity, you know? So I've always wanted something like that to happen. And even though I'm no longer associated with the project, I think it just would be beneficial and, quite frankly, retarded of him not to do.
All right. Well, I'm gonna need to cover this at the end of the month. So if something changes,
Yeah.
I
mean, as long as you're as impartial as you've been with us, I'm fine if you get critical. As long as you don't do some funny shit.
No, I'm not gonna I don't know, turn him into a soy jack or something if that's what you're worried about.
I mean,
But
I've been able to enjoy a couple of Yandere Dev memes after this.
but
I've enjoyed my Dota.
yeah, get the
Listen, there's literally hours of calls between Dev, Cameron, and myself. Admittedly, I played nice to get them to open up. But make no qualms about it, I am not a fan of any of these people. Right? There are hours of content here, and I have a huge doc linked below in case you're more of a reader. I just want the information to be out there, and I want to be transparent about what I did. I basically lied to get these people to open up to me. Yeah, I did. I lied to them to get them to be my friend. Whatever, I don't care. Yandere Dev is a piece of shit. Needless to say, back to Cameron. Cameron was quite involved, and he would piecemeal information to me as he did his little detective work as well. And the information he would piecemeal to me did direct me at certain players in the story, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a deliberate piecemealing of information. Now, at the end of September, he had left the Yandere Simulator project, right? And he didn't hear about this CSAM stuff until early October from Dev. So he tells me these things about how bad and dangerous Jelly is at the time, though he may have known it earlier in September, right? It really depends, and it's hard to know what exactly happened in those calls that I wasn't present for. Either way, in early October, I was put on to finding out about how Jelly was involved in all of these honeypotting for blackmail money operations. The problem is now that I have to re-look at this information, the lying and piecemealing of info makes this very difficult to parse, especially with some new information that has come into my lap. Cameron even admits in a call with me that he was afraid to be honest with me because of the level of respect he places on me. Which doesn't help any of this whatsoever, because now I have to look at everything Cameron has sent me with a grain of salt, thinking about what are ulterior motives that this guy could have. Now, Cameron tells me in a recent call that when he had heard those CSAM and masturbation clips, that he had sent it to the police. But I really don't know if he's telling the truth. He needs to prove it because I did my work. Dev, Ali, Cameron, all of them gave different conflicting stories. Not once, not until after the dust has settled, does Cameron seem to have these outrageously incriminating clips of Dev. Not until he makes a ceasefire with the Reddit mods on r/Osana. Okay, so let me tell you how I look at this information coming out after everything, right? So either Cameron knowingly withheld this information till an opportune time presented itself, or he sent it to the cops once he learned about it, and then, regardless, still met up with the minor that was being groomed, which would only complicate a federal case anyway, so it doesn't really help whether or not he sent it to the police because he was so involved. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Yes, Cameron met up with the minor, Jelly, in question. All of this suspicion, by the way, is compounded by Cameron having been an active participant in the Yandere Dev drama for about 5 years or so. Now, Cameron, as a teenager, was accused of doctoring screenshots in old dramas, running defense for Yandere Dev, sometimes regarding people who Dev threatened or bullied for their mental health. As a teenager, he'd insert himself in overly complicated pedophile dramas, not once, but twice. Once regarding a person called Sisef who accused Dev of grooming her while Cameron ran defense in a video. Cameron's opinions on this have changed though from our conversations. He was also involved having conversations about Dr. Apis. This is another person that is just completely deplorable, right? But the way that Cameron works is if a position is completely untenable, Cameron will cave. But he'll sure as hell take the long way around to get there. Now, admittedly, he was a teenager when most of that stuff happened. But the problem is that this continues till adulthood, and frankly, in my opinion, it's a pattern. Okay, so withholding the CSAM masturbation clip is bad enough, so let's talk about him going to see Jelly the minor, because that doesn't make him sound any better either. Cameron told me that during the Thanksgiving break, he drove up to see family and that Jelly was close by. So he admits he wants to get to the bottom of this and do a documentary. At the time, he knew of all of the extortion, the honeypotting, and the grooming. He also knew that this might have been trained into her by her mother. The reality is we don't really know what's going on there. But either way, he knew about those things. He knew that Dev received things from Jelly, according to him, based on the timeline of when he would have had those sea salmon masturbation clips. And then, well, then he tells me this.
Okay. So when you say it was kind of like a situationship fling thing,
Mhm.
I understand it's personal, but what did you do with her exactly?
I don't think. Well, first of all, I know she said I like raped her or some shit. That's not true.
You didn't have
Uh,
sex?
I think me choosing not to answer should be an answer for you.
So that's a yes?
Yes, we did.
Uh-huh.
Not that we didn't when we first met. That didn't happen. The second time we met, it like kind of just after like talking a shit ton, it kind of just went there. But we wanted to keep it private because we didn't want people thinking some weird shit between like that Alex had any involvement in it because he didn't. Like my interview with her was very anti-Alex. I can show you that.
Now, that's what he told me back when I was looking into this initially, right? Now, when we call recently, he adds on to tell me that he vented to her emotionally about topics he would not be discussing with a minor. He should not have been discussing the things that he was discussing with me with her. Now, I'd love to tell you what Cameron told this minor, but when Cameron told me about the thing, he said that he'd put a bullet in his head if I told the internet that thing. But I can certainly tell you, I wouldn't talk about it at a youth group. I'm not putting it out there. It's again kinda on Cameron, but it is bad.
So over that time, you're bonding with her and you tell her, you know, this horrible thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, why did you tell her that? Just because you felt comfortable?
Well, we were both talking about, these like situations because we had both just gotten out of that crazy situation, right? And then she was telling me about, things that happened to her, and there was this one specific instance that I was like, damn, that's a hard relate.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of pried a little bit, and it took a while, but then like we just got into a really emotional conversation. But yeah, it just kind of came out there. We were both venting to one another.
So originally when I pressed Cameron on this, he tells me that they have sex, a heat of the moment thing, right? Yes, not only does he just meet up with the minor, he hooks up with her, okay?
Why would you sleep with Anne, dude? Like
It wasn't smart, obviously, but it wasn't planned. Like I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like a heat of the moment thing. Me and her were kind of going really deep on the shit that we were dealing with
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time, and I don't know. I guess something just clicked.
Were you guys ever flirty before you met in November?
No.
No? Yeah, because that stream you guys did together, I'm like, kind of looks like they got some romantic chemistry.
You think so? Because we weren't like at that point. She had attempted to flirt with me beforehand, but I hadn't reciprocated in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, it was nothing I was ever planning. I was pissed at her. She is funny to be around though, and that's what I liked about her. I was definitely becoming a friend, a good friend of hers.
So this heat of the moment passionate sex happens, and then, not but days later, Jelly accuses him of rape. Then she walks it back, and she lies some more, and lies, frankly, a lot. And to add even more complexity to this, right? It's a year later, and the iDubbbz Content Cop is coming out. And Cameron calls me up, and he says, actually, Diesel, just so you know, I actually never had sex with her. I was being blackmailed to say that because if I didn't, she'd tell everyone my top secret thing that I'd kill myself over. Anyway, here's the top secret thing I'd kill myself over. I'm not gonna tell you in detail, but please don't tell anyone because then I'll kill myself. Okay, so get this. You said you had sex with an underage grooming victim of your former boss so your family wouldn't hear about this deep, dark secret. Okay, all right. Which, by the way, if I was in the world's worst saw chamber and I'd had to choose between the grooming victim thing and the secret, I would rather the world know about my secrets than the grooming victim, okay? Now, back when this originally happened, when Cameron told me that they had sex, not but a week later, Jelly says he raped me, and then being there accuses Cameron of things and instantly walks them back, right? It's going back and forth and the lies are flowing like a river. Then in the midst of being accused, Cameron comes to me and says, "Don't cover Jelly," as if that's at all possible.
She's coming up in the video. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way.
I'm gonna request you don't mention me and her with the honeypot stuff. I don't want anything I've ever sent you used about that. I no matter what, because it's just I don't think it's cool.
You know, that's a crime, right?
Now, there is an actual reasonable argument for why you wouldn't cover Jelly, right? Now, the reason I covered Jelly is because she played a role in everyone's story. She allegedly taught other minors to allegedly groom pedophiles, and frankly, the case was fumbled from the moment I got there, right? Allie inserting herself and coaching a minor, this minor lying to everybody and being really good at it. And there was just no way that I could tell this story without saying that, yes, there is this person named Jelly and she did these things and she's probably fucking crazy. Now, Cameron also admits to having sex in Discord calls with me multiple times back when this happened. In fact, he also comes on stream with me and beats around the bush about this, playing coy as I'm reacting to his response and really not buying some of the things that he said in it.
So maybe I'm being charitable here, but the argument is you're 19, she's 16. For some people, they say that's just... I know she's 17 now. When did you have sex with her?
I'm not going to say whether or not I did.
Oh, really? Are you fucking stupid?
No, Cameron.
You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You said to me, by the way, you watched the video. You said to me in the call that you were traveling to see family for Thanksgiving.
It was AI.
It was AI?
It was AI.
Are you really going to be stupid on stream right now? Because this is not going to be a good look.
It was a robot.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. He's doing it on purpose.
I'm working on my video right now, and I'm in a really goofy mood. So this is
Cameron, you're being accused of a felony, okay? And now here you are talking to me about this on a stream with like 100 people.
I didn't know this was gonna be a stream. I didn't realize you were streaming.
Did you or did you not watch the video?
I did watch the video. I watched the relevant parts for me. I had to skim through it a little bit.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Cameron, I watched the relevant parts.
Cameron, you can sit here and not talk about, right? For people, what I was gonna say earlier, for people involved in this, they feel that a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, which you say she turns 17 in February, which means when you had sex with her, she was 16.
Allegedly.
Allegedly? So now you're just saying her age is just a complete fabrication?
No.
That's it? No?
No, I'm not saying her age is a fabrication.
That you hooked up is an allegation. That's an allegation that came from your mouth.
The idea that I raped her is an allegation.
Yeah, it is an allegation.
So the response video from Cameron is a lot of things. The response video is a response to all the drama, which he's taken down, by the way. He avoids addressing this whole allegation of them hooking up, right? Instead, discussing the non-allegations surrounding it. Things like, hey, did we have sex to Big Dick Randy?
Did I have sex to you while listening to Big Dick Randy?
We did not have sex while listening to Big Dick Randy.
Okay, and you gotta understand here, right? In every private conversation Jelly and Cameron have that I have access to, They discuss whether or not their sexual encounter is consensual. They never discuss whether the event happened at all. In these private conversations, where it's just them, they both clearly pre-agree that a sexual encounter happened. In a group chat between Liaison Cameron, Jelly, myself, and my head researcher, they both pre-agree something happened. Cameron even elaborates at how it wasn't rape. So what? These private conversations where you're both pretending to have a sexual encounter, have had one, are just you both playing pretend?
He said that you did nothing wrong?
Well, in a legal standpoint.
From a legal standpoint, I was saying no and I was scared and that I didn't want to.
No, just in the sense of us having sex, and that can be argued because once I heard you say stop, I put you down. You were being nonverbal.
I don't think I was.
I'm telling you.
'Cause
Maybe I wasn't hearing correctly, but I'm telling you that I did not hear the word stop, and until I did, I put you down. And I felt awful because you were like, once you like started like squirming a bit, I felt like bad.
Squirming? You're gonna call it squirming? I was hitting you.
Were you?
What the fuck? Oh my god.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I don't know. Obviously I wasn't intending to do something bad to you. And I feel bad about it. But that's between us, and that's not going to be public.
What about how I spent like 5 minutes telling you that I didn't want to kiss you, and then you wouldn't let me go?
Haven't we already been over this? Like, I feel horrible about that, and it was only because I wanted to spend more time with you. I wasn't trying to force you to do something.
But you can't just act like you didn't do anything wrong.
That's the first thing I said to you. Like, like you said, I didn't do anything wrong in the sense of like anything illegal, and in regards to the idea of us having sex, and that's all I was talking about. Not that between. That's why I said obviously between us. I know I made mistakes, and I feel horrible for them because I broke a boundary that I didn't realize I was breaking, and I feel awful.
You didn't realize you were breaking it? Me telling you that I didn't want to and that I was scared and not to grab me. That... Okay.
If you were like... Hold on. Like, obviously, like, after the fact, once I put you down, like, I realized what was happening. Like, there's a reason I put you down.
Because I was hitting you.
You might have been. I personally don't remember that, but you might have been. I'm not gonna rule it out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm genuine when I say I do not remember that.
So, okay, let me get this straight. Which one is better here? Helping Dev via proxy by lying, or sleeping with the child he thought was hot? Which one is worse? I mean, both of them you're helping Dev, but both of them are also pretty bad. To further complicate things, in our original timeline, at the same time Jelly was accusing him of things, another woman enters the discourse. Krexa. Krexa's not important. The short and skinny of Krexa is that Krexa tries to portray Cameron as some sort of maniac, which, if I haven't made it clear, Cameron is a fucking idiot moron. There's actually a clear difference between a maniac and an idiot. So, there's that. So, who is this Krexa person who's accusing Cameron of more things, right? So, for the sake of your sanity, Krexa is really just this mentally unwell young lady who Cameron had a situationship with. Most of all of it is he said, she said type stuff, okay? Krexa played it off as like a goodwill of Arosana will help her, right? So the anti-Yandere dev community comes in and helps her, and they start a GoFundMe, and then it ultimately ends with Krexa taking the GoFundMe money that was for 2 people and running off with it, okay? Krexa is just a piece of shit who flew onto the story and then flew away like nothing ever happened. So I put out my video, Cameron puts out his response, I grill him on stream, you should check me out, link below, right? And then a month later, those infamous clips of Yandere Dev are anonymously leaked via Cameron to r/Osana, which these audio clips are edited, by the way, and you can hear that there's definitely some conversation cut out, but they're more than damning enough, so it's not like that really matters all that much. I just felt like it was worth mentioning. And also, Cameron would be good at editing audio because he's a sound engineer and he understands these things and he can make music. He knows how to do that, okay? He knows how to use audio. So, okay, that's the story as it stands. Then a year passes, okay? And right before the iDubbbz Content Cop drops, Cameron calls me to say this.
And I think now I can finally explain this. I did not have sex with Jelly, okay? The reason I said that, the reason I was pressured into saying that, was because she had blackmailed over me over something that happened to me when I was younger, and I didn't want it out. And she was trying to force me into this weird thing. It doesn't matter. I don't care anymore because I have proof of her blackmailing me now. So it doesn't matter. I didn't have sex with her. I wasn't interested in her. I met her to interview her. If you really care, if you care that much, I could prove it.
To which, by the way, this is an incredible claim, right? It's an incredible shift up in the story. And so I start to look into it because it is incredible, thinking maybe I missed something in my calls. And no, I didn't. I go through all my notes and recordings, and there's really nothing that can corroborate his story outside of Jelly being a liar. Now, the sex story is a he said, she said type situation, but remember, he admitted it himself. It's his words against him. Now, Cameron expressed to me he wanted to come back to commentary because he had a fondness for the genre, okay? We've talked about commentary a lot. He follows drama. It's unsurprising that posts from when he was with Dev have started to go missing since I started looking. My video does make him look bad, by the way, by fault of his own actions. I'm not surprised that he wants this video gone. It's a bad look. It's a bad look for somebody wanting to get into commentary to have this kind of thing dangling over you. This puts you in the impossible to defend position of the following. So Cameron had damning clips of Dev either sat on his computer until it was relevant, or us just having to trust you when you've lied in the past and say that you sent those clips where they needed to go when you got them. I mean, you should be able to prove this really easily via an email correspondence that you had with the department. But is that the case? I don't know. We'll just wait and see. I'm sure you'll provide it after I put this out. But that's not really the most impossible to defend position, assuming you've actually done it. The more impossible to defend position is this. This whole I lied saying I had sex with the grooming victim of Yandere Dev complicating the story and helping Dev via proxy, or I did have sex with a minor complicating the story by helping Dev via proxy and implicating myself. I wouldn't want to be in that position to defend myself. It's kind of really fucking difficult. Listen, I did my work on this story, okay? That video is 3 hours long. I spent months of my life on it. I did my work. I talked to everyone for months, okay? At this rate, it's on you to find these things, not me. And so, we'll see what happens. I thought I was done with Yandere Dev, but yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.